and welcome to our special coverage for this evening, Monday, the 12th of April 2021. We're coming to you live from the studios of the National Broadcasting Corporation on the assigned frequencies of 107.5, 90.7 FM, and www.nbcsvg.com. My name is Dion John, and I'm here with you, sharing the chair with me, and the spotlight tonight is Program Manager Colvin Harry. Colvin, good evening and welcome.
Good evening and thanks for the welcome. It's been quite a day today. So many different things to take care of, and our main responsibility is to make sure that you have some company tonight, and some very good company. We have some very interesting bits and pieces for you, and some guests that I'm sure will entice you to stay with us and spend the night with us into tomorrow morning. And we're making sure that we get those in for you in just a bit.
So we're happy that you've joined us. Understand that other stations have decided to join and will be carrying and streaming our broadcast here this evening. Old School FM, I understand, Colvin?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Old School FM, and where that other regional entities will be carrying our broadcast, and persons feel free to share as you've been doing over the last couple of nights since we started this sort of broadcast from last week. So today was another eventful day in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in the lives of Vincentians, and in the unfolding explosive eruptions at the Soufriere Volcano. Shortly after 4 this morning, we were informed that there was another explosive eruption at the Soufriere Volcano, and the difference about this particular eruption is that it released pyroclastic flows, and that had many persons basically saying, And we're going to share that and tell you a lot more about that. Yes. We had a thorough explanation of that by Professor Dr. Richard Robertson as well on our program this morning. And stay with us. And we've definitely got all the information you need at this particular point. So who do we have online with us? Some very special friends of ours. We've got them online with us. Colvin, are we ready?
Yes, I believe we are. Yes.
And we want to introduce to you, most persons know her in her present capacity as the Supervisor of Elections in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but she's not here in that capacity this evening. She's basically here this evening in her capacity as the Coordinator Red Cross activities for the leeward side of the country, and has other responsibilities. In addition, she was intimately involved in the volcano exercise back in 1979. She was a shelter manager then. And Dora James is guest on our program this evening. Lady Dora James, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines and all those in the diaspora, good evening.
Okay, let's establish this evening, Ms. James, before we go any further, the capacity in which you're speaking to us.
Can you just repeat?
This evening, you're speaking to us in your capacity as the coordinator for Red Cross.
Yes, in North Leeward, especially.
In North Leeward, especially. Yes. And if you can just share with us what has it been like in North Leeward from the time the evacuation order was given up to this present time?
Okay, on a Thursday afternoon, just after the Prime Minister's press conference, I headed up to North Leeward because earlier in the morning, there was some panicking about whether we had moved from orange to red. But after I listened to the meeting, I confirmed with Nemo whether that was so. And then I went up to North Leeward. By then, at 4 o'clock, the North Leeward, the Chatibler group met. And while we were meeting, we were told that the evacuation order was given. Why did we meet? That was the most important part. we met to reconfirm that we had covered all our tracks, all the preparations, and that we were going to inform the people that we are getting closer and closer. Something is happening and we need to be fully prepared. We got the evacuation order and we divided ourselves into communities. So the members went into the various communities and informed the persons that it was time to evacuate. We were a little bit unsure about the time, but we were told that the afternoon we will take the vulnerable. So we informed them that it was time for them to get ready. We were going to move them. And then we were also told that boats were coming and we needed to inform the community. So it took us maybe about half an hour. And I need to say here that the people of Chateaubriand responded quickly. We noticed before I could get back from my area, people were already on the wharf. Some persons were gathered at the bus shed, and we saw two policemen who joined the team, and they informed them that they should go to the wharf because we felt that most of the persons were going to be traveling by sea, and that was also confirmed. And we decided that the vehicles would take the elderly persons because many of them would not have been able to walk down to the sea, and we did not have that transport at the time to take them down. So the strong went down to the port and the elderly stayed behind so that we can bus them to, we were told, the Golden Year Center.
Yes, and I'm sure when on that evening when you had the evacuation in progress, what was that like for you and the experience of your colleagues who worked along in the process of evacuation?
Calvin, you're a little bit low, so I don't know, and I have turned my volume right up, so.
All right, let me just see if I can adjust the input here. Are you hearing me better now?
A little bit.
All right. What I was asking is in terms of the experience on the evacuation night itself. I know some persons may have been very scared, others just in an orderly fashion. But what was that like for you and your colleagues in getting those persons out of North Leeward?
A number of persons responded immediately. Persons were already packed, and just before the evacuation order and we got to that stage, we had reminded persons beforehand, and 2 or so weeks before that, the Ministry of National Mobilization was on the ground with us. So we went through the various communities and touched base with the elderly. So they had a first-hand grip of what was happening, the persons we had to evacuate, the numbers, and their health status. Now, when we said it was time to go, people were ready to go. However, there was that grouping that felt that they would wait and see what it was like. I remember talking to an elderly gentleman, and he said, I waited it out in 1979, and I'm not going anywhere. And he could see the volcano, and he said, nothing is happening over there. Nothing is happening over there, so I don't see the need to move. And I said, something is happening, but you're not seeing it. The scientists have given the information, and we need to move. By the time we were on the move, persons were going, there was fire on the mountain. The mountain top, some persons were saying it was because of the heat, the dry area started burning. But what we found out was that the dome had grown and the material was flowing over the rim. And that was what we were seeing, the blaze. And so on. So there were a number of persons, hundreds of residents gathered at the port in an orderly fashion. And I really need to commend, because persons were saying if we had that evacuation order, persons would rush. And so I really need to mark that, to comment on that the people of North Leeward, I saw people coming over on trucks on Petit Bedell, and they came off. The boats were not quite ready. And when the boats came in and the first one docked, the police were there and they stopped them so that we can make sure persons were going on in a particular way. And all those persons stood up and they went onto the boat. So we had one boat left, the next one just docked in, because we had about 3 boats at one time in the harbor. So we were well on target getting the persons out. We were a little bit concerned about some of the elderly who did not respond in a timely fashion. We had some delays, yes, with the transportation, but when we were ready to get them, some persons refused to move. That was a little concerning for us. We completed the process just about, say, 10:25 that evening.
And what about the age groups? Were you noticing more, senior citizens, younger folks, teenagers in the mix? Was it a good mix of individuals of different age groups
Very
heeding the
good
call?
mix of individuals, and persons came in families.
Okay.
So we had very little confusion when it came to finding siblings, finding parents. We didn't have that issue. Once or twice you might hear somebody say they didn't see a child, or so, but then somebody answered, here's your child, and we asked them to keep them together. So we had very little confusion when it came to that. As I said, people were orderly and they listened.
Mrs. James, how important is preparation in this entire process, and early preparation?
It was very important. We began when we got the information that the volcano, something was happening at the volcano. And we started having meetings. But because of the coronavirus, we couldn't meet in person. We had to cut our meetings and do some of it by Zoom. And some of it also we had a WhatsApp chat on Shatibler Red Cross. We had the Shatibler Disaster Group. We had the Fit Use Red Cross. We had Rosebank. We had Coast Hill. We had Mr. Shallow in Coast Hill. We had Chumuka. Nola Providence and the Chumuka youths, along with Esther Providence Burke. And we had the Spring team. We also had Rose Hall. So all the communities were connected, and we made sure that what information we had, we shared it. If there were questions to be asked, we got the questions, we clarified, and we were communicating with NEMO and also the Red Cross.
The response from your particular end was good, and I want to commend you. I actually saw how intimately involved you were in the process. What do you attribute that to? Because it appeared as if persons were informed and knew what they had to do. What was responsible for that?
Well, first of all, I want to say Almighty God. He was the chief director, because we had to connect with him. Secondly, I think experience. And we were always engaged. Red Cross is always on the ground. And when, even sometimes we don't meet, we have to admit sometimes we don't meet. But when something is there, we inform. And we kept nothing back from our people. We kept nothing back from the members of the group. Everybody was on par. It didn't matter what your situation was. Once you're a member, you were informed. We had some persons who were not in the chat, and there were other persons who were responsible to give them the message face-to-face, or however else they would get the message. So I would attribute that to the unity, the connectivity that we had. Yes, there were some persons who were saying that they didn't have the information, but the information was there. And we went as far as setting up a Shatibele Facebook page. It came a little bit late, but that was because we felt that some persons were not connecting with the right stations or avenues to get the information. And so we made sure that we find every little way in giving the information. And two, I think that everybody knows Teacher Dora. That was my play name.
Yeah.
Teacher Dora and the respect. No matter what it was, the people of North Leeward gave respect to the organization.
How was the experience you gathered as a shelter manager in 1979 informed the choices you made in terms of the preparation which led to basically the successful evacuation of most persons from North Leeward prior to the eruption on Friday?
So I'm going to take you back 1979, but just in 1979, I was a Red Cross member and I was also a young teacher. And we were called out to participate in the shelter. Now, my Red Cross background gave me a little bit of experience because we had training. And I need to mention here Mrs. Yvonne Patterson. She also had some experience because she was engaged in the whole issue of the 1979 eruptions. When I started as part of the shelter, I began in Barley. I was a young teacher then, and we were asked to report to the community from which we came. So my people were in Barley. But then when the Teachers Training Center reopened, I was transferred to the deanery. At that time, but James was the deputy manager. We had Jetro Green, who managed overall, but he would be back and forth. And I was responsible for the shelterees and the persons who were in the private homes who had registered with the center. Now, because of that kind of engagement, and also I was an evacuee, I was able to mesh all of those experiences together to inform the practice going forward.
Well, that's definitely worked to your advantage, and it's a good time that you mentioned that you're an evacuee because you're also an evacuee now, and you and your family have had to evacuate to ensure that you are not in harm's way. How are you settling in where you are, and if there are any challenges at all you're experiencing not being in what is considered to be your home?
Well, where I am now, I was accustomed coming here. As a matter of fact, elections brought me here. I had to make sure that I was close when we were getting in the heat of things. I couldn't travel always up to North Leeward. And then I decided that I would find somewhere where I can have, when I have long nights, that I can get home quickly. Now, yes, we are from the comfort of our homes, but there are persons who are in worse situation than us. And so I am not going to complain. Right now, we have challenges with water, but that too I'm not complaining about because persons are getting water for me and I have access. So I am not complaining, but I would ask, my husband is right here too because he is part and parcel of the support and the process. And so he's going to come in now to add to how we are settling in so far.
And of course, we welcome Mr. Cool. Mr. Cool is a friend of NBC, and so we expect to hear how you're settling in. Mr. Cool, welcome and good evening.
Yes, good evening, Diane. And this is my new look, my new evacuation look.
Okay, I'm waiting to see if we approve of the evacuation look. Okay, okay, all right. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes, but I'll go back to the day of the evacuation itself. When I always offer support in that regard. Because that's my wife. I am part and parcel of the entire process, right? And just looking at that and how smoothly it went, how organized it was, it was just good to see. But then the day of the eruption, and I'll say this to you because she didn't say it. When we realized that the volcano was erupting, and I called out to her and said, look, we'll have to move now. Her first response was, there's some elderly people that I need to touch base with first. So you understand what mode she was in at that point in time. And not thinking about self, but thinking about, those persons that she had to check in with. And so much so that even as we got out on the Friday morning, she was adamant that as we got to town, we just left the stuff. She had to double back. And what was the term you used again?
Have to mop up.
She had to mop up. Mopping up meaning going to check on those people who they had registered and they had checked and didn't get to. So that Friday afternoon, we went back into Chateaubriand, and so being part of that, being that support role, and even as we're here, like you said earlier, there are people who are a bit worse off. So we will not and we cannot complain. And I think it's a difficult situation for everyone because not only the evacuees, because the entire country is without water right now. Some people are without electricity. So it's a national issue. And, so we have to look at it in that way. And yes, 1979 was a good experience because both of us were managers of the evacuation center Deanery. I think the evacuees there were from South Rivers and Park Hill. Yeah, so I was a young 19-year-old teacher at that time, and that experience really brought to bear on the support we're offering right now.
It is interesting to note that you both went back into North Leeward. I was it on Sunday? I'm not too sure, but one of the days you right,
also, yeah.
and you basically went to check not only on your property but on others who remained there. What was that experience like, and what are some of the changes you observed as you went back in?
Yes, well, I'll say I didn't expect to see what I saw. The road was really difficult to navigate, to maneuver. But with my driving experience on the North Leeward Road, that was important in that regard because we had another vehicle with us, and I had to, even come out and give him some guidance, some instructions in terms of how to drive the vehicle on that road. As we got going down from Belial, it was slippery. Some of these vehicles, they have their anti-slip, systems and so on. Showing him how to engage the manual function of the automatic vehicle to go down the hills and not go down and drive. All those things are important. So it's not only the actual effects of the volcano itself, it's also how do you navigate certain things within the whole process? Because if you don't have that experience, that knowledge, that information, we can have accidents. And we did have one accident where a guy slid into one of the vehicles as he was coming down. And that's because of inexperience, Mm-hmm. So what we saw was really, really, really out of this world. The amount of ash on the road, the vegetation, the destruction of the trees and all of that, it's really difficult to really look at that time. But like I said, it's a national thing, and we have to, take it in that context. But as we got into Chateaubriand, just seeing some of the folks who stayed back and, chatting with them, and, still trying to encourage people, listen, it's better to get out, for your own comfort. My own brothers are still in Chumuka, at this point in time, but yeah.
I just want to add here too, when we got in, one of the persons I had to I connected with was, I'm not sure about his full name, but we call him Kojan in Chateaubriand, and he is Simmons. Now, I had gone down to Nemo to relay some information, and I headed off to North Leeward. But while I was at Nemo, a young lady asked, you were going to help Kojan? And I said, where is he? He said, in Chateaubriand. I said, well, I'm heading up to Chateaubriand. I called my daughter, she's overseas, and I said, get me Kojan's number. And she got me the number, and I called him. I said, what is happening? He said, he's there, and some persons want to get out. And I contacted Mr. Francis, because I said, do you have any transport that can assist us? And also I contacted the president of the Red Cross. What I found out also was that the representative had also gotten the information and was getting a catamaran. So they called to say that there was a catamaran that was coming into Cumberland, because there were some persons from Spring Village who had requested transportation. So I left, and on my way up, I was still trying to find out who else I can get to support and to join in this team. I got Mr. Anderson, who is the leader of the Barley Red Cross. And I said, do you know anyone in Barley with a bus or van or truck who will be willing to go on the road to North Leeward so that we can take the people who want to come out? And he said, I am going to send you Mr. Brewster's number, the representative for the constituency. And as I contacted him, he said, something, Mrs. James, I have a meeting, but I am going to call and cancel the meeting. By the time he got to Layu, he was there with his pickup and a Jeep. And I had my personal Jeep and a vehicle from the office. So those vehicles, we went in a caravan to North Leeward, and that is how we were able to get the persons. By the time we got there, Kojan had already informed the persons, and persons were at the bus shed, some persons were at the wharf, and some persons had left in fishing boats and were heading back to town.
Well, as we continue, as we at this particular point now, we're basically waiting to see how much longer we will be in this state, and we would be at different locations and so forth. What is going in? What's going into your mind? I mean, there are some persons who still, at this particular stage, don't want to move for various reasons, and everything like that. What is basically your encouragement to persons at this particular time? Because it looks like we're going to be in this situation, this type of situation for some time.
Then I'm going to be very honest. But for the persons who have relocated at this time, I know that they are going through a difficult time. Many persons are unsure what to expect when they go back. And you just said it, we are going to be in this for a very long time. And one, we will have to give each other psychosocial support. Persons, when they see what they're seeing when they go back home, especially for the first time, that initial shock is going to meet with them, and they would have to be able to maneuver that. And then to all start their cleaning and then start looking for some form of livelihood. and how they're going to make it. Now, we are a set of resilient people. And we know that there are Vincentians abroad who are stretching their hands to assist us. We also know that there are a number of persons worldwide, the regional and international, who are making the effort to bring relief and to ease our suffering. I'm saying to those persons, first of all, we must be thankful to Almighty God. We are all alive. That is a great thing. Because when I look at Friday morning, strange, Friday morning, I had messaged my volunteers and I said, we're going to do mopping up about 9 o'clock. 8:30, the volcano decided, somewhere around 8:30, the volcano decided that, no, you can't do any mopping up, you need to get out, I am going to take charge. And so persons, by the time I got out of the house, persons were running up the hill, those persons who were left behind. And I know many of them went without taking much.
Yeah.
So to be surviving in shelters, 2 suits, 3 suits of clothes, you can't wash because there is no water to wash. And if you get water to wash, you can't hang out because of the atmosphere, the ash in the atmosphere. So it doesn't make any sense. You hang out. That is a challenge. You are accustomed to doing certain things and in certain ways. You are accustomed to having a whole bread, and now you might have to eat half. You might be accustomed having your meals at 12 o'clock. Now you're getting it at 2. You're accustomed to have your own private space. Now there are other persons in your face. COVID is in the air. The challenge of whether I should take the vaccine or not, and a number of issues. So this multiplicity of issues can be overwhelming. And we need to consult our God and to say to God, we are crying out. We understand that we have erred and strayed from your ways like lost sheep, but we are willing to return and take us back and to build that strength that he is going to give us, because we are going to need each other. We cannot continue to be divided. We have to take down those barriers that we are putting up and to ensure that we hold each other's hands. And I also, because of my engagement in Red Cross and with NEMO, I recognize even people right here. They volunteer, the persons in the green area, they open up their homes, they have given their times to serve. They have given whatever little they have, and we must be thankful regardless to whatever. It might not be all that we expect, but we must say thanks.
Diane, I'd just like to add there, because I think one of the things that we miss in this whole situation is that there'll be need for some counseling in the evacuation centers. I'm sure the authorities are looking at this, but the earlier that is available, I think it will be better, because there are a lot of people who are not accustomed to this kind of situation, and it will be really helpful to have that available at each evacuation center. So that is something I suggest to folks when I get an opportunity to talk to them.
Well, it looks like if we have the same idea, because at 12:30 as part of our program this evening, we will have Dr. Joselle Miller and Andrea Games Mohez, who will be offering that type of support to callers here on our program as we go through. So we're bringing it to persons, and I know that they've got their own schedule. But your story is nothing short of exceptional. I am really touched, and I'm happy that you shared it with us. I really couldn't resist when I looked at your pictures, Mr. Cool, and I saw you and Lady James heading back into Chateaubriand, and I thought that this was a story that the nation needed to hear. And I'm so happy that you told it to us. I would be better for what you have said. And there's no doubt we are a resilient people, and I am hoping that, all things being well, we would band together and we will regroup and we will rebuild, but we must do it together.
Together.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
We must do it together. Things will be a little rocky at the onset. We have limited resources on island, but we will get there. And with hope, we need to be hopeful, and we need to pull that inner strength that we have, because we have it within us. We are going to get through this together.
Yes. And we've been getting some comments on our stream. We're streaming live on Facebook, by the way. And someone says, you're both modern day heroes. And commendations to you for a job well done in looking out for the people in your community. Nothing but praises for both of you on our comment section. Now, persons are saying, Teacher Dora, it's good to see that you're still very much doing what we know you to do, a people person, helping those around you, and showing the true spirit of a Christian, and that is being noted there. See all the comments. The persons you probably taught in school at some point, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let me thank you both for speaking with us tonight. And here's wishing you all the best. And we will continue to check in with you and continue to give work that is outstanding. I know it's less of you and more about service and more about the people. Congratulations and all the best. Lots of love to you both. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining in tonight. And yes, we continue with the coverage here on NBC. It's our overnight coverage as we continue. This is day number 5. Is it day number 5? Day number 5. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and this is Monday. Yes, I think I counted right there. But we have a lot more in store for you, as promised. We'll have a segment there geared towards those who have been observing what has been happening over the last couple of days. And it's a lot. It's a lot to digest. The images, the videos, the stories. It can easily get distraught and just break down when you hear some of the stories. When you go to the shelters and you see that persons only have the clothing that they took, they just left. They didn't have an extra piece of clothing. They didn't get the time to take anything else because the order was given to evacuate, and they saw it as the best thing to do right away, to move. And now they are dealing with having to remain in a shelter until who knows when. So we really want to make sure that persons, as much as we physically take care of them, we have to make sure that they have the physical things they need, but also the emotional help, the psychological help to get them through this difficult period.
I'm reading a comment from Colin Weeks, who says that he is a licensed professional counselor based in Columbus, Ohio. He's also of Ascension, and he's offering his services. And I'm sure that, Colin, your services will be required. And I'm sure the authorities will make good and to see that you are a part of it. As we continue on our program this evening, just want to share with you the latest in terms of a bulletin number 59, dated the 12th of April, as at 8 this evening. Colvin, if you can just share the content of that bulletin with our listeners so they can have an appreciation for what's the latest update as recorded as 8 this evening, and we will share that with you and other updates and other developments which occurred during the course of the day. So, Colvin, it's over to you.
Yes, and this is bulletin number 59 as put out by the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, their Emergency Operations Center. And I will read it for you as of 8 p.m. tonight. This is update 59 as mentioned. It reads, the pattern of seismic activity at La Soufriere changed again with the end of the episodes of high amplitude tremor 2 to 8 hours apart. 3 episodes of tremor have been recorded and since 6 a.m. and 2 of those at lower amplitude, and the third at about 5 p.m. was high amplitude. The episodes continue to coincide with periods of enhanced venting and explosive activity. Small, long-period earthquakes have been recorded since about 6 p.m. on the 11th of April, that's yesterday, and these were erroneously reported as volcano tectonic earthquakes in a previous report, and that has now been verified. The assistance was provided by the Coast Guard today and enabled a reconnaissance of the entire north coast of St. Vincent and St. Vincent from Chateaubriand to Georgetown. Observations made indicate that pyroclastic density currents, or PDCs, had descended several valleys onto the southern and western flanks of the volcano and had reached the sea at Morond, Laracay, and Trois-Loufs Bay. Extensive damage to vegetation was noted in an extended area from Laracay Bay to Turner Bay on the west coast. No other areas along the coast were affected by the PDCs, but villages located on the eastern flank of the volcano were affected by heavy ashfall. The volcano continues to erupt explosively and has now started to generate pyroclastic density currents. Explosions and accompanying ashfall of similar or larger magnitude are likely to continue to occur over the next few days. The alert level once again remains at red. 85 shelters with more than 3,782 occupants are now activated. Registration of persons who have sought shelter with family and friends. This process is ongoing. The National Emergency Operations Center continues to be fully functional, operating on a 24-hour basis around the clock, and NEMO will continue to provide updates on a regular basis as we continue to monitor La Soufriere.
Well, thank you very much, Colvin, for that latest update from bulletin number 59. I just want to share with you a quick tip to protect yourself from volcanic ash. Limit your driving and drive slowly. Keep doors and windows closed. Wear a mask or damp cloth to protect your eyes and throat. So this says protect yourself from volcanic ash, limit your driving, and drive slowly. Keep doors and windows closed. Wear a mask or damp cloth to protect your eyes and throat. And that's a very timely message, and please ensure that you adhere to what it said in the message as best as possible. So today we also heard that a release from the Office of the Prime Minister that the original release, which was disseminated on Sunday for all civil servants to return to work, that was rescinded, and now only civil servants who are providing an essential service are required to work, and this is until further notice. We anticipate that, all things being well, that when Prime Minister Gonsalves and Dr. Robertson checks in with us tomorrow at 8 o'clock, all things being well, that we would have an update to that if necessary. Also coming out today, a release, duty-free concessions relief supplies, and I'll read. Please be advised that until further notice, Cabinet has granted approval for a 100% waiver of import duty, VAT, excise duties, custom service charge, and the bottle levy on all relief supplies imported into the state from friendly governments, international organizations, charitable bodies, other entities and individuals, and consigned to the following: the National Emergency Management Organization NEMO, the SVG Red Cross, Rotary Clubs, Lions Clubs, Chamber of Industry and Commerce, or any other established religious, charitable and civic organizations. In addition, in view of the acute shortage of potable water in the country, Cabinet also granted approval for a 100% waiver on all import taxes, import duty, VAT, excise duties, customs service charge, and the bottle levy on all water imported into the state. Cabinet has also granted approval for a 100% waiver of VAT, import, and other related duties on all barrels with effect from April 12th, 2021 to June 30th, 2021. So this measure and approval granted Cabinet today as it relates to duty-free concessions and relief supplies. And while we're on this particular topic, I think it is also important for us to raise an issue which was highlighted earlier on this morning, that that there are persons who are setting up lots of GoFundMe pages. Please note, and Colvin, I would ask you to pull that. You have there's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs
I could
in
pull that up.
particular circulated some information today, which I think was is very important as it relates to this, that persons, you must get the requisite authority and permission to set up GoFundMe pages, because it has been brought to the attention of the authorities that persons have pages vested in the name of NEMO, Red Cross and other agencies locally, and are using their money for their personal gains. If you're doing that, please do not let it get to the point where the authorities would have to come looking for you in all that is happening. So please desist from doing this, and we're going to share that information with you. Of course, even though there is a volcanic eruption taking place, it doesn't mean that that laws and rules and checks and balances are no longer in place. So please ensure that you get the necessary information as to how this can be done. So, Colvin?
Yes, and this was posted 16 hours ago, and it provided the information as to how you can contact the agency responsible, the Foreign Affairs Department. It reads, for persons overseas wishing to make donations to St. Vincent and the Grenadines as part of the Soufriere relief, they're asked to do so through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or through any of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines overseas missions and consulates. For further information on how to donate, you can contact the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the following numbers. Telephone 784-456-2060. Once again, 784-456-2060. There's also the option of using the government's PBX system, 456-1111. This is extension 319, extension 319. If you see the need to use the fax platform, 456-2610, of course 784 being the area code. And there's the two options for the email, office.foreignaffairs@mail.gov, that's gov.vc. Once again, office.foreignaffairs@mail.gov.vc. And there's also the Gmail option, svgforeign@gmail.com, svgforeign@gmail.com. If you need to put something in writing, there's a mailing address for which you would address your particular wish to donate to St. Vincent and the Grenadines as part of the relief. That address is Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, 3rd floor, Administrative Center, Bay Street, Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, 3rd floor, Administrative Center, Bay Street, Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If you're following up on a request from someone abroad and you to visit the office, the opening hours are between 8 a.m. and 4:15 p.m. And that's if you wish to make contact and you wish to facilitate someone who wishes to donate to the fund, the relief fund for the Soufriere fundraising activity organized through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
All right, thank you so much. And we want to share with you some news information which came out during the course of the day. This one is attributed to the Caribbean Media Corporation, CMC. The Trinidad and Tobago government says it will be deploying members of the Defence Force to St. Vincent and the Grenadines tomorrow, as that CARICOM country continues to deal with the explosive eruptions at the Soufriere Volcano. We will be deploying 50 officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force. This contingent will comprise personnel from engineers, infantry, medical and logistics. The contingent will be stationed in St. Vincent for 2 weeks in the first instance, the Ministry of National Security said in a statement. The ministry, which has been coordinating Port of Spain's assistance to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, said the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management has been coordinating efforts to collect supplies to be transported to the island on Tuesday and Wednesday. The eruption of the volcano has resulted in several people having to be evacuated to several Caribbean islands, and the scientists monitoring the volcano have warned that eruptions could continue for several weeks. In 1902, the volcano erupted, killing over 1,000 people. It last erupted in 1979, but there were no casualties. In addition to that,
Sorry, I have a bit of a follow-up from that earlier post by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with some numbers for those who are particularly based in the USA. I'm not sure if you wish to share those now while we're
sure.
still fresh on that. This was posted just about 8 hours ago, and these are for persons living in New York and those who are asking how they can contribute towards the relief effort. If you're living in New York, USA, or neighboring states and you wish to contribute to the SVG Soufriere disaster relief efforts, see the information which I'll share with you shortly. And the government and people express gratitude to the diaspora community for the collaborative efforts put forward to aid persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So, and how can you assist? Contact the consulate of St. Vincent and the Grenadines as the first option. It's located on 801 2nd Avenue, 4th floor, New York, 10017. The telephone number is 212-687-4490. That number again, 212-687-4490. The fax number, 212-949-5946, 212-949-5946. Email vinsof, V-I-N-S-O-F, at svgconsulateny.org. That email address again, VINSOF at svgconsulateny.org. Or you can reach the Consul General by cellular 914-320-2208, 914-320-2208. There's also a very long list of individuals to contact. Should we share those now, or we'll come back to those a bit later on? Yes, so we'll give those numbers to you. And if you're donating by way of a check, you have to write all checks to SVG Community Incorporated, SVG Community Incorporated. The contact persons, you can choose to contact any one of these persons to do this procedure. Verna Arthur, 718-758-2416. 718-758-2416. Laverne McDowell, 347-385-6227. 347-385-6227. Atiba Williams, 347-898-7501. 347-898-7501. Gans Byron, 917-856-9722. 917-856-9722. Celia Bramble, 347-668-0774. 347-668-0774. O'Brien Simmons, 347-446-1827. 347-446-1827. Additionally, you can go to SVG Relief Inc. GoFundMe account, contact SVG DRIP and the representatives for that organization, Sherilyn Mason, and you can reach Sherilyn at 718-344-7565, 718-344-7865, or 877-784-3747. That number again, 877-784-3477. Email svgdrip2021 at gmail.com. If you wish to take donations of emergency supplies, you can do so by taking it to Friends of Crown Heights Education Center. It's 671 Prospect Place, Brooklyn. That location again, Friends of Crown Heights Education Center, 671 Prospect Place, Brooklyn, New York. Major drop-off drives on Saturday, April 17th and Sunday, April 18th will also be taking place at that location. During the weekdays, there are also 2 drop-off points. You can choose to drop off your donations to Standard Chippers at 9502 Ditmas Avenue. That's Standard Chippers at 9502 Ditmas Avenue. Their number is 718-469-8377, 718-469-8377. Or you can drop it off to the Office of the President of the Borough Hall, 209 Joe Lemon Street, Brooklyn, New York. If you wish to use the other options, contact any CARICOM consulate office in New York. Contact the SVG Embassy in Washington, D.C. at 202-6, that's 202-364-6730, 202-364-6730. Email mail@embsvg.com, mail@embsvg.com. And that's the end of that particular contact list, and it ends with a needs list, some of the priority things and items that we are looking at in terms of donations: bottled water, non-perishable food items, folding cots, blankets, sleeping mats, 5-gallon buckets, hygiene kits, field tents 20 by 20, water tanks 800 and 1,000 gallons, respirator masks with filters, fields kitchens, toiletries, and goggles. So those are some of the needs list urgent items that are required in order to be sent off for assistance here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I do hope that you made a note of those numbers if you're in New York or surrounding states and you wish to donate through the various channels.
Okay, thank you very much, Colvin. Earlier on, we also heard that the World Bank disbursed US $20 million to support the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' response to the crisis posed by the volcano, and that's today. The explosive eruption began on April 8th and has required the evacuation of 20,000 people from the high-risk zones around the volcano. The World Bank Country Director for the Caribbean, Tashin Said, says, "Our hearts are with the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines during this crisis. We are committed to supporting the response efforts at this critical time when the country faces this new disaster while already managing the social and economic effects of the pandemic." The funds are disbursed from a contingent credit line from the World Bank known as the Catastrophe Deferred Drawdown Option, CAT-DDO, approved in June of 2020. The CAT-DDO instrument is designed to provide immediate liquidity to support a country's efforts to recover from the disasters triggered by natural hazards or a public health emergency. In recent years, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been making efforts to strengthen its preparedness and capacity to respond to disasters. And that's, of course, that story is attributed to the World Bank. And we will tell you more as we go through. I know that right now it's really difficult for some persons who have a challenge, especially not being able to be in an air-conditioned room with the climate of this part of the world, and not as a friend said to me from Trinidad this evening, most houses in the region were built with ventilation, because that's how Caribbean homes are built. And most houses now are closed up, so you don't have to expose yourself to the ash fall and everything like that. You're told not to open windows, ensure windows and doors are sealed and sealed tightly, and everything like that. So I know it's hot. I know it's hot. And so for persons who are not doing too well without the AC, I feel your pain. I know what it's like. And there's an interesting article which I saw at published in Barbados earlier today, which I will share with you as we go through this evening. And I really thought that yes, I should share this with our audience, because basically it's not wise to actually put on your AC during this particular time with all the ash fall and everything like that. Of course, the sludge which is collected on the unit on the outside from the ash and everything like that. But we will tell you more as we go through. Yes, I noticed some persons were asking if it was still raining ash on the outside. Yes. And yes, it is. And, it is so amazing that in some parts of the UK today got snow. Today's the 12th of April. I was speaking to my younger sister today, and she was heading into to London from Reading. And she called, and when she called, the place was white. There was snow, so it snowed today. Something is really happening as it relates to the environment and climate change, you know. You can't help but notice that. Where do you hear that it snows in April? That's like a no-no.
No.
You know, it's a no-no. It's April. It's the middle of April, and it's snowing. The amazing things which are happening in the world as it relates to the weather and climate change. You know.
Tomorrow is April 13th. And 42 years to that date was the last eruption. Interesting enough, April has a way of repeating itself as it relates to La Soufriere historically. And tomorrow and that day would have been Good Friday in 1979. We're well past the Easter weekend now on this occasion, in this time period. But it's a reminder that the La Soufriere is pretty much always there. It took 42 years before it started to show some sign of activity again. Well, more like 41 plus in some months. And we're unfortunately in a situation where we've had several explosive periods during the course of this eruption, starting just before 9 a.m., about 19 minutes before 9 a.m. on Friday morning, and it has since continued. The largest such episode was this morning at 4:15, and we don't know the other episodes that may come during the course of the next few days. It is reported that there may be a similar or even greater magnitude, a greater strength. So we ask that you continue to be vigilant.
The history was that it was the second Friday in April 42 years ago, and it erupted in 2021 on the 42nd anniversary on the second Friday of April, which was the 8th.
Yes.
What was the date? The 8th.
What, in 1979?
No, this
The second Friday. It was the 9th, I believe. Yes, that was the 9th.
The 9th.
The 9th, yes.
So that in itself, it did erupt.
On the second Friday.
No, but what I'm saying, it did erupt on in terms of the history.
Yes.
Yes, it's 42 years later. And I know persons are saying, yes, it is April 13th, we're aware because it's past midnight. So, yeah, I know.
It is. Yes, I sort of forgot that.
It's correct. It
didn't look at the clock.
It is April 13th, and we remember that. We remembered that, and so we want to take all things together. And just to go back to the presentation by Mr. and Mrs. James, and what stood out for me is something I've been saying all along since we were here doing this evening package, is that in spite of, we are thankful and we are grateful. And that's how I think we should be saying at this time. Yes, we know that there are challenges, but we are thankful and we are grateful. And I just thought that I should share that with you. Colvin, let's take a quick break and regroup, and we come back. Just to let you know, at about 12:30, we will have, as part of our program here with us, Dr. Giselle Miller and Andrea Games Morehouse, who will be tackling psychosocial issues as we continue as part of our programming here tonight. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you.
And we'll leave the online viewers with some views of outside. You can see the flakes of ash still trickling down, not as heavy as yesterday or the day before, but they're still there. So we'll leave you with that view.
volcanic ash. Volcanic ash is composed of fine particles of fragmented volcanic rock, less than 2 millimeters in diameter. Volcanic ash is often hot, very close to the volcano, but is cool when it falls at greater distances. It is formed during volcanic explosions from avalanches of hot rock that flow down the side of volcanoes or from red-hot liquid lava spray. Ash varies in appearance depending upon the type of volcano and the form of the eruption. It can range in color from light gray to black and can vary in size from being like grit to being as fine as talcum powder. Airborne ash blocks out sunlight, reducing visibility, and sometimes causes complete darkness during daylight. Eruptions can also generate thunder and lightning from friction between the fine airborne particles, which can be localized above the volcano or accompany large ash plumes as they move downwind. Large ash deposits can incorporate into existing soils and become the future topsoil of a volcanic region. The effects of ash on health. Effects of ash on health may be divided into several categories: respiratory effects, eye symptoms, skin irritation, and indirect effects. In some eruptions, ash particles can be so fine that they breathe deep into the lungs. With high exposure, even healthy individuals will experience chest discomfort with increased coughing and irritation. Common acute short-term symptoms include nasal irritation and discharge or runny nose, throat irritation and sore throat, sometimes accompanied by dry coughing. People with pre-existing chest complaints may develop severe bronchitic symptoms, which last some days beyond exposure to ash. For example, hacking cough, production of sputum, wheezing, or shortness of breath. Air irritation for people with asthma or bronchitis. Common complaints of people with asthma include shortness of breath, wheezing, and coughing. Breathing becomes uncomfortable. In rare circumstances, long-term exposure to fine volcanic ash may lead to serious lung diseases. For these diseases to occur, the ash must be very fine, and the people must be exposed to the ash in high concentrations over many years. People suffering from asthma or other lung problems such as bronchitis and emphysema and severe heart problems are most at risk.
Good evening and welcome back. Good morning, and welcome back to our program as we continue to keep an eye on the Soufriere Volcano. We will share with you the latest update from the UWI Seismic Research Center. This was done by the director, Dr. Joseph.
This is Dr. Rosala Joseph, director of the UWI Seismic Research Center, with an update on the volcanic activity at Soufriere Volcano in St. Vincent on 12th of April. The explosion at 4:15 a.m. resulted in PDCs that were seen from the coastline along the northwestern coast of the island. Professor Richard Robertson and Dr. Thomas Christopher made visual observations via the coast using the Coast Guard vessels. The villages of Fancy, Owea, Sandy Bay suffered heavy ashfall, but they were not affected by PDCs. Ash in the upper level winds may still affect neighboring islands such as Barbados, Grenada, and St. Lucia. We encourage everyone to visit the IVHHN's website for more information on coping with the ash. We continue to monitor and provide updates as necessary. This is Dr. Ursula Joseph, Director of the UWI Seismic Research Center, with an update on the volcanic activity at La Soufriere Volcano in St. Vincent on 12th of April. The explosion at 4:15 a.m. resulted in PDCs that were seen from the coastline along the northwestern coast of the island. Professor Richard Robertson and Dr. Thomas Christopher made visual observations via the coast using the Coast Guard vessels. The villages of Fancy, Owea, Sandy Bay suffered heavy ashfall, but they were not affected by PDCs. Ash in the upper level winds may still affect neighboring islands such as Barbados, Grenada, and St. Lucia. We encourage everyone to visit the IVHHN's website for more information on coping with the ash. We continue to monitor and provide updates as necessary.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. And that's the latest advisory, latest update from the UWI Seismic Research Center. So remember, coming up at 12:30, we will have Dr. Giselle Miller and Andrea Games Mohaz on our program, and we'll be talking about the psychosocial support which is being offered at this particular time, and they'll be taking your calls and answering whatever questions you have. I think specifically they want to look at anxiety and fear on our program this evening. What we want to do is to share with you a song. It's a calypso. And I remember, I think this came out in 1986, and I'm doing this blindly. I don't have the information in front of me, so this is from as I remember it. So 1986, I think this was done. This is Calypso for Africa. Remember when We Are the World came out? When they were leading that charge for the world, all the artists got together. Lionel Richie, later Kenny Rogers, and among them Diana Ross, all those wonderful voices, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and the like. And so in 1986, the Calypsonians came with the Calypso version of that. So we're going to play that for you as we stand in solidarity and support. And here's hoping that you're going to hear this one. And I'm sure you haven't heard this one in a while. So, Colvin?
Show that we're serious. Let us all come together as one to help eradicate starvation. Now is the time to do the things you said. Now is the time to help in every way. Now is the time to show that you really care. Now is the time to show some unity. When will there be an end to this hunger? We must help, leave no stone unturned. It's time for us to show more concern. Now is the time to do the things you said. Now is the time to help in every way. Now is the time to show that you really care. Now is the time. this struggle. Let us prove what we talking about. Oh, let us show love. Let us pour it out. Now is the time. Help save Africa. Now is the time. Famine and hunger. Now is the time. Oh, send them a little bread. Yeah. Now is the time. See the children of this world. Now is the time. With all your heart and soul. Yeah. Now is the time.
That was Calypso for Africa, 1986 rendition featuring the region's Calypsonians. Now is the time to help your fellow man. Now is the time to be neighborly. Now is the time to help St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now is the time. And speaking of time, it is 12:30, just a minute or so away from 12:30. But we've got both ladies already in the room. And so we want to bring them in at this time. We're going to talk about the psychosocial support, which is a term that we've been hearing quite a lot about. And who better to discuss this with us and to share their expertise as we look at fear and anxiety. Both emotions, feelings are abundant at this time with all that is happening, as we welcome Dr. Joselle Miller and Andrea Games Mohes. Ladies, good evening and, well, good morning, and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. I think I must start by saying, Dion, that I really want to commend you and your staff at NBC for an excellent service that you're giving, not only to Vincentians here in Ireland, but around the world, that you're keeping everyone up to date. I know this is not an easy thing to be around the clock like this, but I must commend you guys. And, you know, at this time, we are really going through quite a bit. We have been going through quite a bit for some time. That it is a matter of dealing with COVID for so long. And then now we have to be talking about the volcanic eruption. So quite a few persons are now in a situation where they are trying their utmost best, as we say, to survive. So anxiety and fear is definitely something that is, you know, worthy of a conversation tonight. And I am very happy to have with me tonight my colleague and friend, Mrs. Andrea Games Mohes. I'm just going to start the conversation by, you know, saying what anxiety is, and then Andrea, you'll just pitch right in. That anxiety is understood to be a feeling of unease, or, you know, such as having some level of worry or fear. It could be mild, it could be severe. So one of the things that we are very mindful of is that anxiety is something that affects us all, that it is not unique to one individual over the other. There are some persons, some personality types that may be more prone towards anxious feelings, but nonetheless, it is something that affects us all. And it is very important that we are mindful of what anxiety would manifest as physically, emotionally. We have to be mindful of our triggers. And tonight we want to discuss a little bit surrounding that as it relates to this natural disaster that we're experiencing, and most to give you some coping tips that you'll be able to function as we go forward. So Andrea?
All right, Andrea, we're not hearing you. All right, I'm not sure what's up with Andrea's mic there. No, she's not. Andrea, did you plug your mic out?
You hearing me now?
Yes, now we're hearing you. Go ahead.
All right, so just to build on what Dr. Miller was speaking about, but I want to take it up a little notch in terms of relating it to what we're experiencing now in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And you would hear a word that may be used, which is trauma, right? So from intense or increased anxiety and fear, especially when you have a significant or terrible event, you have an emotional response or a traumatic reaction, as we would make mention of. So as clinicians and psychologists, what we would be paying attention to is the aftermath as well of post-traumatic stress from this significant natural disaster that we have experienced. And because of the uncertainty moving forward, you will have a lot of persons having distress or feeling overwhelmed by the experience. Right? So as Dr. Miller would have talked about in terms of anxiety, we all experience it, but we are experiencing a large degree, and not only persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but also members outside of our islands. So persons in the Caribbean, we have persons in Barbados who are experiencing ash, reports in St. Lucia of persons who are experiencing the effect of our volcanic eruption here, and also Vincentians and Caribbean nationals who live in the international community who are feeling that effect. So they're not here, but they're seeing what's happening, and they're also having an emotional response, which we would term as anxiety or intense fear, which is triggering different responses for persons. Right? So going back to Dr. Miller in terms of looking at the symptoms and also creating ways to cope. Now, what we want to establish is that because it's going to be an ongoing experience, we may want to try to push away what we're feeling, and that's not the best way to cope at this time. It's really important to acknowledge and be aware of what's happening. So both of us will be really expanding and exploring on anxiety, fear, and also trauma, the trauma of this event.
Right. And one of the things that is quite, well, what is happening now? Since 2020, as a matter of fact, when COVID came on stream, there is this level of uncertainty. We have been hearing things like, oh, we are living in unprecedented times, that persons are no longer certain as to what the next day would bring forth. To the extent that persons were like, wow, if this is what 2020 is, I'm not sure if I want to see 2021. So that optimism went out the door, that persons became very mindful that, you know, things are very unpredictable. And that unpredictable nature of, you know, the presentation of different scenarios cause persons to lose control. And one of the things about human beings is that we like to have control. We like to know that we have some level of power over all the different variables in our lives. And when that power is taken away, then persons sometimes feel as if they're plummeting into this space that now impedes their self-efficacy or their ability to say that I can actually overcome a particular scenario. So the anxiety and fear coming out of a traumatic event like this volcanic eruption, you're now anxious about what the future holds, perhaps. Anxious about your ability to handle it, your ability to be resilient, your ability to move forward, because you're now at a place in your mind where it is not only that you're questioning what the future holds, you're questioning now, would I have the skill set? Would I have what it takes to actually, you know, rise up again, be optimistic, and get into that frame of mind that says, I'm going to keep fighting? Because one of the things about anxiety and fear, it will allow our mind, our coping mechanism to emerge as either being a fight response or a flight response.
And also, it's to break it down, it's like your body is going into shock, but your brain is also going into shock because it's so many different events are happening at once, especially with displacement of what has happened in the volcanic as a result of the volcanic eruption. So you would have persons who would have had to evacuate their homes, their place of safety. And in terms of breaking down anxiety, what I like to explore is it pushes you further into the future where you're creating all these different ideas, but you don't know what the outcome will be. So there is a high level of, you know, overwhelming shock about the calamity, but also what is going to happen next. So you can find yourself trying to anticipate, but there are no answers. And that also creates a high level of worry and an excessive response that persons may not be able to answer at this time.
Right. And now anxiety and stress and all of these things can manifest physically, it can manifest psychologically and emotionally. And I want to give you just an idea as to what some of the physical symptoms may be, because some persons presently might be experiencing some of these at the shelters, or, even in your own private homes, that you are, somewhat uneasy, and this uneasiness is affecting your physical function. So you might find that there are some persons who may have trouble sleeping. And over the last couple of days, I would have received some calls during the night and some messages where persons are saying, you know what, I can't sleep, I can't cope, I'm afraid, because again, there is something that happens in the night. During the day, you have a bit more control. You have this feeling that, okay, I can see, my senses are more alert, and I am in a better position to really respond in a way that, would be fitting, that I can safeguard myself better. But when the night comes in, that in itself brings its own, if you want to call it, terror. And I know in St. Vincent, I think it was it Saturday night, Andrea? When did we have the total blackout?
Yes, I think it was. Yes,
right. And I think that would have done a lot to a lot of persons, that you got extremely scared, because it was not only about being in total darkness, but some persons were hearing the rumblings, and you are now in a panic stage as to what is going to happen now. So the trouble sleeping can manifest itself coming out from that particular incident, or even other things. So every night, you're up and it is difficult for you to actually fall asleep. Some people might fall asleep, but you do cat naps, that you're not getting a full sleep. You wake up in the next day and you're somewhat tired, feeling exhausted. This is also quite common. Some persons manifest stress with a stomach upset, that your bowels feel a bit queasy. Some persons might have diarrhea. Some persons have constipation. We have feelings of fatigue, this lump in your throat. Some persons might actually have the manifestation of shortness of breath. And this, at this time, will create even more panic. But sometimes it is that as an individual, you're not taking deep breaths, you're not really taking in enough oxygen, so that your body goes into this space now where you begin to probably hyperventilate. And it's very important that you learn how to calm yourself in that moment and ground yourself, so that you can actually realize that you are fine, because your brain can start processing over time, and that in itself can put you into more shock and more panic.
And also, to build on the symptoms, we want to look at also people may experience flashbacks. So I could even talk from my own experience in terms of, if I hear a vehicle passing and it sounds like a rumbling, you're wondering, is that another eruption? You're checking the news, you're looking on Facebook. Also with anxiety, persons may overeat or undereat, right? They may not have an appetite, or they maybe find themselves overeating, because also the body is processing the anxiety in terms of what to do with it, right? Also, there's a series of intense feelings or mood swings. So especially for persons who would have been displaced, you're not feeling safe because you're not in a space that you're comfortable in, not your comfort space, right? So you can find yourself feeling very uneasy, or also having more intensity. And even persons who are outside of St. Vincent as well, you can be feeling that sense of uneasiness because you're responding to what's happening around you. And also in terms of emotional safety too, for persons who may not be displaced, in terms of what is going to happen next. So even exploring how does that affect me in terms of what is my body responding to, and also building what Dr. Miller said in terms of figuring out how to stay in the present is really important in managing. Also, one more tip, it can also affect your relationships in terms of may experience intense irritability or those outbursts of anger. So you may find people making insensitive comments, and sometimes it's not really a response only to the situation that's happening in front of them, but also the fear of what's to come, a sense of panic. So you would find those conflicts in relationships now because persons are not thinking on a rational wavelength as well. We're responding emotionally because so much is happening, and we're also getting a lot of information coming in, which can also affect our ability to make sound decisions as well.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important, even for those persons who are in the shelters, to exercise some level of patience. Give yourself some time to actually adjust to the change. It may take a moment, it may take a few days. So don't rush yourself necessarily, but it's also important for even the persons who are offering that support within the shelter, the managers, volunteers, and everything, that persons really take the time to give persons that moment of adjustment. That is going to be critical and very important. Now, I want to go quickly in terms of how can you begin to cope after a traumatic event. And one of the first things I would want to suggest to anyone, accept your feelings. We have this thing that we say in the Caribbean quite often, oh, be strong, be strong. And that's a good encouragement. And I know that it's coming from a good space, but usually when persons say be strong, they're trying to sometimes speed you along to get over what you're feeling in that moment. But we want persons to actually process your feelings, acknowledge that what you're feeling is a normal response, and more so for you to internalize a little bit in terms of why you're feeling that way. What are all of the different things going on that you can now probably pinpoint and make sense of it? Because when we try to deflect or, try to push things aside, we are not necessarily processing it well. And that in itself can become that elephant in the room, that thing that keeps, if you want to say, tripping us up over and over again. So we have to look at it for what it is and acknowledge how you feel. If you have to cry, cry. You have to scream, scream. You basically have to become one with your emotional space at that time. And from there, you start what we call regulating. So you now figure out, this is how I feel and this is why I feel in this particular way. And this is how I feel like I want to react. And you have to ask yourself, this outcome, what would be the outcome of this particular reaction? And in some cases, you might have to draw it back. Some cases, you might have to just let it out. But it's a matter of learning how to regulate your emotional space at that time.
Yeah. And really understanding and learning what you're experiencing takes time. So even building on what Dr. Miller was saying, especially to persons who are caring for persons who are in shelters or even caring for persons in their home, it's really important to recognize what's happening around you, because you are going to feel a different level of anxiety in terms of a sense of helplessness. Sometimes a hero attitude may kick in. And especially in this moment where there's so many different things happening at the same time, you may not be able to answer questions, and you can feel frustrated with yourself as well, but also frustrated with the system. And that can also lead to a different level of stress, which is fatigue, right? Compassion fatigue. So you can experience significant burnout because of that wanting to address the emotion that the person is pushing towards you, but also trying to work on your own emotions as well. So even exploring in terms of building on that statement of being strong has to take on a different meaning in terms of, am I ready to acknowledge what I'm feeling and understand that I don't have to fix it right away? Or am I willing to take steps to access support, but also knowing that I don't have to fix that right away? So I can understand and be present with the emotion, but not allow it to take over your sense of self. Because every time you help someone, something is taken from you. And even for persons in shelters, being in a space that you're not comfortable with, even not figuring out how to adjust, can take more energy that you would need for the long run. Right? So it's really important to have a sense of awareness and understanding, and also acknowledging your readiness in terms of, am I ready for the next step?
Yeah. And see, it's important for persons to talk. I know there are some persons who may be prone towards internalizing, meaning that you just simply pull away, you go into yourself, you separate yourself from other persons and somewhat withdraw. And that's probably your go-to coping mechanism. But it's often important for persons to push themselves even out of that thought process of pulling away at a time like this. Even if you're not fully engaged, it is always good to still be around persons and be around activity, because it helps you to engage on a different level. Sometimes you may have to try other things like play and humor to try and help you to get through each moment. And I would encourage persons not to feel that you have to take on the world all at once, but let's do bite-sized pieces, one step at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. That's how we have to make it work. And understand that even as we try to navigate our way through this whole process, that there are going to be days when you're going to feel really empowered and really strong. And then there are going to be other days where you feel like, oh, wow, no, I can't do this. Either way, the support system around you is what is going to be critical as well. That persons are able to recognize each other's, if you want to call it an off day. So when you notice that, okay, Giselle, you don't song yourself, you don't look yourself, somebody can tap in to say, hey, I'm here, let's do this. What do you need? And vice versa. We have to pay close attention now to all of the persons, our family members, the other persons in the shelter. We have to try and understand that it is a we thing now, not an I thing, but it's a we thing, because we all have to now work together to push and navigate through this.
And also paying attention to regulating your body as well. Because at this time, there's a lot of energy and a lot of things that are going through a person's mind. And remembering also to breathe. Breathing helps to regulate. It helps to tell the body, okay, I can take a moment to calm down. Not calming down in the sense that I have to fix it right away, but calming down in the sense that I am able to look at what's in front of me. I'm able to process what is happening around me, and then I'm able to reach out for some sort of support. But also building on what Dr. Miller is talking about in terms of a sense of we-ness or a sense of community. We heard a lot of it during the COVID time in terms of solidarity, right? But in these times, what we are seeing even in our community is a sense of togetherness. Yes, there's a sense of uncertainty, but there's a sense of togetherness. And in terms of appealing to persons, especially in different homes, persons who are taken in persons in their homes, or even persons living in the shelters, is to create that sense of community as best as you can. Also creating little routines and schedules that can bring some sense of comfort. So a shelter is not a resemblance of a home, but it can become a place of safety once those measures are in place to create that balance and that sense of community. So even having little check-ins in your space in terms of getting a sense of what people may like, what their moods are like, paying attention to those things, it's really important that we check in with each other in order to create some sense of balance, even though we may not be able to see the outcome later on. And it's a long road ahead. But that sense of community creates a sense of comfort in knowing that somebody has my back, so I don't have to fall by myself.
Before you continue, we've got a question. What are some of the grounding exercises that persons can do at this particular point?
Okay, so off the bat, one of the things when persons are actually probably experiencing what you might call a panic attack, that sometimes you begin to get extremely flustered, you're unable to focus or concentrate. Some persons might, your whole body might express this sort of panic whereby some people start shaking and doing all of these different things. It's very important for you to hold on to something very firm and concrete at that time. So let's say, for instance, you are standing somewhere. If you can push yourself against a solid structure, like against the wall, and you want to hold firmly to that, sometimes it's best that you close your eyes, start taking some very deep breaths, and remind yourself, tell yourself, I am okay, I am okay. That's one way to ground yourself. Or if you're seated, hold on to the arm of the chair and press your body firmly. Plant your feet on the ground and press your body firmly against it as a support structure. Now, there's also the fact that maybe a family member or some other person can be there. And if they hold you tightly as well, embrace you probably from behind and just simply hold you so that you can feel the presence of someone else. And even their breathing pattern at that time can calm you down as well. When you start listening and feeling their breathing, then you can control yours. In terms of some of the activities and stuff that can help to ground you is to use stimuli or use anything that keeps you in the present moment in a positive way though, so that some of the maybe books can be used as well as a way of grounding you to understand that, okay, you're still contributing something productive. So take, for instance, in cases where you're in a shelter situation, something seems to have triggered an anxiety or an anxious response. If you have something that is familiar, like probably an album, well, people don't do albums anymore, but you have phones with all of your photos that can center you and help you to just simply connect with something, that can also work. Andrea?
Right. So with grounding, as Dr. Miller was saying, it's really important to be present, but especially in a shelter situation where there'll be maybe a lot of noise and stimuli. If it's possible to more or less to try and connect yourself with what's happening, especially with nature. Nature helps to also bring you back to that point. So even taking a walk outside, trying to listen to the birds, trying to listen to the wind, but also those things can also be can have trigger responses as well. So you want to be careful with that. Breathing is very important, and it's also a method of trying to release that inner tension, but also bringing that breath, bringing you back to that center. With little children, sometimes we help them to pay attention to their senses. So there are different pressure points in your body as well. So if you don't have somebody to hold you, as Dr. Miller would have said, you can do those exercises with yourself by hugging yourself and pulling in that point. So you're bringing yourself back to that present time. And there are a lot of other techniques as well in terms of paying attention to body movement. So there's something that in primary school that I would have experienced where teachers would tell you, put your hands up, put your hands down after lunch. Right? I don't think they realized they were doing grounding techniques, but those are some techniques as well in terms of stretching. It helps to actually to release those tension, but it also helps you to get a sense of what your body movements are like and how you're feeling in your body. So that way with movement, and that's the path that you want to take in terms of moving with the anxiety. How I tend to explain it is, if you're in the sea and you panic, you can drown, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make a choice. Do I float? Do I swim? Can I swim? Do I stay still and call out for help? And that's how you find that movement with your anxiety, because if you panic, you can drown. So you want to be able to center yourself in the present, but not allowing everything around you to overwhelm you or overstimulate you.
And I think just to add on what Andrea said there, I remember this analogy that it's not the water around the boat that would capsize it or make it sink, but the water that gets into the boat. And in like manner, you have to start understanding part of grounding is filtering. So we have to filter what we are taking in. And the overconsumption of negative things, social media, anything that, once you realize this is your trigger, these are things that you also have to keep flushing out of your system. Because the more you log on to it, then it is more water getting on the inside that can cause you to drown, that can cause you to go under.
Question. There's another question, sorry, before you go through. As it relates to sleeping and not being able to sleep at this particular time because you're fearful of that something might happen when you're sleeping. What's your advice?
Yeah. The thing is, it's very important that if you can't sleep at night, for instance, that you're probably up for different reasons, because let's say you're in a shelter or even at home, and there's a level of discomfort that prevents you from sleeping. If you can take naps during the day, it also helps, so that your brain still has some level of rest and you're able to rejuvenate yourself. Now, some persons lean a lot towards sleeping pills, taking something to calm you and to help you to sleep. That is something that can be done, but you also have to probably start retraining your body. So each night you may find that, okay, I didn't do much tonight. I only got like 2 hours. But again, the next night, you want to try again. You want to probably set what we call sleep hygiene, which may be difficult again in a shelter because the convenience of what you're used to at home is not there. But you have to try block out probably light. If it is that there is still some light coming in, that you put something over your eyes to block it out. Some people might want to sleep with a headphones in or something to block out noise. Andrea.
Well, at this time, sleep is going to be very difficult. And I think acknowledging that is important. Because we're still 3 days shy, and there's still a lot going on, especially the eruption. So finding sleep at this point may be difficult. But one thing I tend to encourage persons, and even for my own self in terms of sleep, is sometimes there are homeopathic remedies that you can use. And we have we come from a very natural base community. But most importantly, checking in with your doctor as well, especially if you have different chronic illnesses. So there are particular teas that I tend to sometimes recommend, like chamomile tea.
It's 1 o'clock.
That's my computer. Sometimes lavender. There's also persons from the indigenous community who do different oils or essential oils to help to calm the body down as well. Because the truth is, sometimes you can take sleeping medication and it doesn't work because you're in that heightened state of emotional distress or anxiety. So breathing before, but also sometimes exercise before can help. But not exercising, focusing on losing weight, but exercising, focusing on increasing your dopamine and serotonin levels, which is a hormone in the brain that tries to balance you out. But still in a shelter, it's going to be difficult. So you can do stretches, like getting, as we talked about in terms of the grounding activities, but also you can look at creating a routine within the day to get those small naps in, but also turning off all electronics to help you not be overstimulated. Sometimes what persons do when they can't sleep, they watch television or they look at their cell phones, and that creates more stimulation. So if even you can probably turn the phone over, put it in another space, in a safe space, that takes you away from that. Or sometimes listening to music. One thing that helps to regulate trauma is finding positive activities to do, but having positive stimulation. So soothing music that can help you to calm, and creating a routine so that the body knows at this time we have to calm down and we have to relax is important. But as I said before, sleep is going to be something that would be difficult at this time.
Right. So you just simply take as much or as little as you get. You just simply work with it, and it is going to improve over time. That's the hope. So Dean, I'm not sure if there is any more comments online or whether or not you're going to open the line if anybody wants to call.
To open the line so persons can feel free to call and speak with you both. They may have questions of their own and give you real life examples and everything like that, because truth be told, a lot of persons are not sleeping. Colvin is not sleeping.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We have a caller. Caller, good morning.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
To the panelists, the ladies, and everybody. Good conversation. We have to handle the problem and everything. But I want to talk about the real suffering in human life. I want to turn it over into biblical conversation. Because what happened, now we have a lot to live by. And the commandments of God, we had to do what is right in order to get away from all this anxiety, from all this problem. Well, the first suffering was Saddam, the second was the flood with Noah, and then we have all these nature elements around us who warning us and tell us to get this right track, because the man that wake up Jesus and put him in paradise is the same man when I wake up human being, either to go in paradise or to face the suffering, the anxiety, the non-stop pain. So therefore, what I really want to say, that mankind, man and the whole of listen, I might be sounding stupid to certain people, but if you live 100 years, that come like a few seconds in God's sight. But you have that 100 years to think and to obey and to think what is right, to escape from these sufferings and volcano and anxiety, and your children, your father and your mother suffering in hellfire. And that time we wouldn't have no kind of solution for them kind of thing. So our greatest problem in life, I believe, and I only believe, but I know, is to escape and do what is right, treat your brother and go try to keep the commandments. But I like Christian, I don't do a lot of stupidness. That does fear me real bad, that suppose I end up on that side. In anxiety, to suffer,
thanks so much
suffer
for
real
sharing.
bad. Now you say for 1 year, multi-billions a year.
All right.
Live in hell.
Thank you very much for sharing with us this morning.
So,
Okay.
brother,
Yes.
what I said, real anxiety is yet to come.
All right.
So
Thanks for
therefore,
sharing.
If you believe in God, you will never ever feel. You will feel a little anxiety, but because some prophets and them, they roast them in fire, they do all kind of things because the word of God. And
All
I
right.
believe, brother, our biggest problem in life is where we're going to end up, either in anxiety or in paradise.
All right. So thanks very much, caller, for sharing with us on our program this morning. Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, part of our coping is actually, plugging into our own faith and our spirituality. And a lot of persons obviously will hold on to their faith in God as a coping mechanism, and we can't shy away from that. We are called land of the blessed, home of the blessed. And this is because as Vincentians, we are also very committed to the fact that we believe and we have faith in God. And, just as the caller said, when you think of Philippians 4, 6, and 7, do not be anxious for anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your mind in Christ Jesus. And even as we think about what is ahead, when we don't have the answers, we have to put our faith and confidence in God. And it's important, that persons keep up their prayer lives and keep connected, listen to gospel songs, listen to sermons, anything that will ground you and, will give you that sense of hope and that sense of optimism about, moving forward. I think it's a worthy thing to try.
Yeah. And your spiritual belief is really important because we are mind, body, and spirit. And really holding on to that at this time is important to a lot of people. And to build on what Dr. Miller was talking about in terms of Philippians, Paul talks about renewing your mind. So we also have to recognize our humanity as well, in terms of we can't place unconditional trust in God if we're not addressing what's inside, because then we're not really coming face to face with what's happening around us as well. So we want to build that spirituality to help us to cope, but also recognize that this is what's happening in front of me and what am I going to do about it, as opposed to just using one element to cope, but we look at the entire body, so mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure if there are other comments or questions online.
Go right ahead. If there's any, I would share with you. So you go ahead.
Okay. So at this time, there are obviously going to be a lot of questions in terms of what is happening. And, one of the things that I would stress to persons in order to try to, again, alleviate some of the anxiety, please check the sources that you're tapping into, because you want to make sure that you're getting accurate information that you can actually depend on. It is difficult when you're uncertain and then you get information that isn't factual. Then it gives you another false sense of hope and reality, and that in itself can also affect you emotionally and psychologically. So you want to tap into the right sources. Make sure that you are listening to the accurate information. Also, it is also very important we consider the conversations that we are having as well, because I would have been noticing, following some of the conversations, the back and forth as it relates to Facebook and Instagram. And a lot of these conversations online can be very overwhelming. And even for someone who's looking in from the outside, it can have a toll. It can take a toll on you. It can really affect you in terms of how you start thinking. It can make you become overly fearful. And you have to also be mindful that there are some persons, as their own coping mechanism, they throw a spanner in the wheel, as we want to call it in the Caribbean, that they be the devil's advocate. They throw things out there just to get a response or a reaction out of you as well. And you have to know when you're being baited, and you have to know when it is important, that time that you need to step back from a lot of those types of conversations.
So I'm going to look at also in terms of persons who are in shelters, especially shelter managers and persons who are taking care of individuals who are displaced. It's really important at this time to listen and connect with each other. Really pay attention to what's happening around you in terms of also listening to your internal voice as well. What am I responding to? How am I feeling at this moment? But also connect with each other in terms of building a sense of community and building a sense of togetherness, and paying attention to not going too far into the future just yet, but trying your best to acknowledge what you're feeling and staying present. It's really important to stay grounded at this time in order to reduce the amount of distress that you're experiencing. And even in the shelters for persons, to build a sense of comfort as well, to be mindful of what we say, even what we put on social media, be mindful of how we are really pulling against each other, but also bringing each other together in another realm, and being kind, not only to others, but to yourself as well. Because for those who are helping, you can neglect your sense of self, and that can also raise your own anxiety response and also raise your level of stress. So self-care is really important, to respect people and have dignity for persons, even when you're documenting stuff, to really understand that this is a very difficult time for everyone. And we don't want to have a community that is going to have a large degree of persons having post-traumatic stress. But we want to make sure that we're taking it one step as possible.
And one of the things as well is understanding that there is a level of adjustment and flexibility that needs to take place right now, that a lot of things are not how we would want it to be, but nonetheless, we still have to be grateful for what is. And I think when we start with that, from that premise, from that mindset of gratitude, then it allows us to change our perspective on certain things, so that we get out of the tendency towards complaining. Yes, there are certain things that obviously, if it is not going well, you'll want to speak up about it. But at the same time, we still have to be very mindful that worst case scenarios, there are still things that we can be grateful for. I think it's important as well to understand that you're not alone in all of this, that all of us, regardless if we are in the shelter or not, we are all affected as a Vincentian population, a Vincentian community. And because of that, we are at different levels in our coping mechanism. Some persons might be further ahead in terms of showing some level of empowerment and resilience. Some persons might be further away. And when we think of the whole trauma response, we also have to think about the grief response that goes from different stages as well. So we have the denial stage and the shock element that, oh my God, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm living through a volcanic eruption. Who would have thought? And you go through all of that. And, some persons will plummet into anger. And anger sometimes can be one of the most long-lasting features, because you can lash out at so many different things that you're angry about. Then obviously there is that bargaining stage again that says, Lord, if you do this for me, I'm gonna, change this for me, whatever, I'm gonna serve you. And we bargain a lot in different scenarios in our minds as a way of getting through our difficult time. Then some persons might be in a stage where they feel totally depressed. And to be honest, it is quite understandable and acceptable. And this is not meaning that you have been now suddenly diagnosed as being clinically depressed. It means that you're having depressive symptoms or moods, or that sadness, that overwhelming gloom that feels like, oh gosh, I don't know how to even begin. And I'll share my own testimony that when I woke up on Saturday morning, and I looked outside, I was like, oh my God, like he just literally did not know how to proceed. And I am usually that person that can jump into solution mode quite easy. I was stuck in my space. I was literally stuck mentally and emotionally. And I had to take a minute. And check in as well with my own support community to say, this is rough. And other persons could have related as well, because we were all going through the same thing, right? So it is to understand that you're not alone, understand that even amidst all that is wrong, there are still things that we can be thankful for. And let's hold on to the gratitude aspect of things until we get back to the space where everything is, as we say, fine and dandy. Let us start taking increments in terms of being happy within every small victory, if you want to call it that.
And also it's important to really feel what you're experiencing. As Dr. Miller is saying, I would hear stories from my parents from the 1979 eruption. But even for my parents, this is something completely different. And there are moments that you're tired. I'm tired of cleaning ash. I'm tired of having to go through some of the challenges. It's not the same degree for everyone, but it's important to own what you're feeling, to own that tiredness, to own the anger, to own the anxiety. And at this time, it's not the best to try to look at the silver lining just yet, but as Dr. Mano was saying, recognizing gratitude. And also recognizing that I have persons who are experienced. We have persons in other Caribbean regions who are experiencing some of it as well. So sense of loneliness and helplessness would step in based on what's happening, because you may feel as though everything inside you, only I am experiencing it. But that's may not be the case or may not be the reality of what's happening. So it's really to tap into that moment to ask yourself, okay, what can I do with this feeling? I may not be able to say I'm grateful for this yet, but I can say I'm working towards being grateful. So even the language that you tell yourself is really important in terms of where do I move with this? How do I understand what I'm feeling? And how do I create coping mechanisms to keep me grounded, but knowing that there are challenges ahead in the future?
Right. And I think even as we think of wrapping up now, is to also mention that whilst anxiety is quite common and we all experience some levels of anxiety from mild to severe, there are persons who have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. And it's obviously would be very difficult for persons like that. I would want to suggest that if perchance you have generalized anxiety disorder or any sort of anxiety disorder, be it social anxiety, phobias, whatever, and this is something that you have been working on from, an ongoing process, please stay in contact with your practitioner, your therapist. If it is that you are on medication, you want to make sure that you are keeping up in terms of taking your medication as well. And obviously, working with someone who has anxiety disorder, you would have already given them certain steps that you follow. You have a certain treatment plan and process. And I would want to remind anyone to stay connected to that treatment plan and try as much as possible to resist the urge of becoming overly consumed by all of the different triggers that are around you.
And especially in this COVID time still that we are experiencing, where being around persons may be difficult. You want to make sure, especially for persons with generalized anxiety disorder, other anxiety disorders, to have a sense of community. Know your support systems. So you may have your therapist, your practitioner, your psychiatrist, but there are other support systems as well that you can tap into to keep you supported and leveled. Because there are other areas of needs that you have and will arise as we go through this natural disaster as well. So you may have a close friend that you trust, that you can share what you're feeling. You may have your religious leaders in your communities. There are certain radio programs that may have discussions or things that you can tap into to get upliftment. So support is all around you. So it's important to tap into each of them so that every part of your development and your treatment plan is met and you're able to feel supported at this time.
And over the next couple of days, I'm not sure how long the 24-hour coverage is going to be going on, but at least for the next 2 days, we'll want to be a part of this conversation where the psychosocial aspect is really looked at. And I believe tomorrow night, God's willing, Dr. Prescott and Mrs. Marsha Ann Morris will also be looking at resilience and how persons can really tap into their resiliency. And then on Wednesday, God's willing, we'll have Dr. Alyssa Alvis and Miss Kimberly Cambridge looking at how can children cope at this time, because we can't forget that the children are also part of the mix. And children in shelters, you have been out of school, your normal routine will have been, thrown off for so long. It's very important that we have a conversation in terms of how to help parents cope, as well as how to make sure the children are fine and okay. So, it was our pleasure to be here tonight to share just a little bit as it relates to anxiety and fear. Yeah.
Thank you, St. Vincent and Grenadines and members in the international regional community for having us on this morning. We really encourage you to not only pay attention to your physical health, but your mental and emotional health at this time, as we all go through this together.
Well, ladies, let me thank you so much for sharing and for being a part of our program with us this morning. They'll be back, not necessarily Dr. Miller and Andrea tomorrow. We've got, but at 12:30 as part of this program tomorrow morning, you can join us for a presentation as we look at resilience and rebuilding. I'm indeed proud of you both, and thank you for joining us. Good information, and rest well.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is NBC from studios at Richmond Hill in Kingstown. So we've added another segment to this particular program. We from 12:30 we will have some psychosocial support from our counselors, and tomorrow we're looking at resilience and rebuilding. So get your questions together, your thoughts, and we will definitely have you. And Anisha Alexander says, thank you for this session. It was very helpful. And Chanel Green says she's looking forward to the program. Empress Madube and Rasi Yakub, thank you so much for being in our audience and for sharing with us. Excellent presentation. And we're going to take you up on your word, Empress Madube. We're going to ensure that we have this repeated and this particular part of the program extracted and placed on our Facebook as an alone presentation, so that persons can have an opportunity to view it and to get access to the information. So lots of good stuff, and you heard it here with us. Remember, we're in studios with you until the hour of our 5, all things being well in the morning, and we continue to take your calls and your comments as we hear what's as you tell us what's going on around you. What's happening as well, I notice lots of persons are saying that that their water supply is still out. I can only imagine how difficult that is. But we've got information that the MV Logos has returned to Port Kingstown. And they have returned just until 6. They'll be there until 6 in the morning. And let me make sure that I read this correctly. So they've got water on board the MV Logos, and they are willing to share. So all you've got to do is to bring your containers before 6 tomorrow morning, and you can get water from MV Logos Hope. So there are persons there who have seen this message and have gone to collect water. So I have not seen a note here about restrictions or anything. All you've got to do is to take your containers before 6 o'clock and go to the MV Logos Hope, and you can get some water there. So that's another avenue. You're up. Lots of persons are up and looking on. So you can get that. So Beulah Abiola, who's in Camden Park, I know it's probably a lot asking you to head into Kingstown, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to get what you want, and that's where the water is right now. So you can get that. Claudette Howard says, good morning, Lady Dion. You need a cup of coffee. Unfortunately, I am not allowed to drink coffee What did I just say?
Coffee? Coffee, you said.
What did I just say?
You're not allowed to drink coffee.
I'm not.
Okay. To break out of that, let's do something to relieve your tension.
Oh my God.
Come up with a single letter before the word ash. Can you do that? How many words? How many words can you come up with before the single word ash? A single letter.
L.
Lash.
D.
Dash.
C.
Cash.
S.
Sash. Not really.
W.
Wash.
I'm giving you all the answers.
Yeah,
Why are you asking me everything?
I'm asking you all the
No, you
single
can't.
letters.
No, you can't
Okay,
expect me to get.
2 letters now.
No, Colvin. I have played and I have won. What am I getting for answering all these questions? What?
Chips. I don't know. Some chips.
Huh?
Some chips.
You know that's not what I want.
Okay. But that was posted, by the way, by the Ministry of Education on their Facebook page. I just thought I'll throw that out there. So head over to the Ministry of Education, the SVG Education Media Unit. They're doing some really neat stuff there where they're trying to get you, and it all forms part of lighten up the moment in your mind. You might be going through a lot right now, but just at least it gives you an opportunity to use just think about different things and play with words and using the English language to just relieve some of that tension you may have. And so head over to the SVG Education Media Unit page, and there are a few bits and pieces there you can try, such as that one, adding a single letter before the word ash, and see how many names. Let me see what the comments look like there. Gash and bash, and if you add 2, it's stash. Somebody put stash. They asked for 1, but they put 2. Yeah, so many different words you can come up with just that simple one. Yeah, I think we have a call online now. Just a lighter moment there. See, it's a relief a bit of,
Oh my God.
of the tension there. I think we have a call online. One. Good morning.
Hello, Camden.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I like to ask Miss Jansen for coffee.
You want to ask for some of the coffee?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any coffee in studio. It's too early for coffee.
I will plum down like 4 minutes on the street. I want a big liter cup of coffee.
All right. Well, go and fetch that and stay with us, okay? Get the coffee and come back and keep listening to the radio. Make sure it's not too strong now, because you want to at least try to get some sleep sometime during the course of the morning. So yes, we're making sure that we lighten up the moment. Around this time, there are many persons who would have their individual challenges. Water continues to be one of those. Some areas slowly getting a temporary supply. Others, the system is really struggling to keep up right now with the demand on it. And we know our folks at CWC, they're really trying. I've been seeing the posts. They're really trying to see how many persons they can get water back to, but it's a serious task, seeing what the Majorca system looks like and seeing what the Jennings Valley system looks like. It will take some time, unfortunately, and as much as it's a difficult period for us to be without running potable water in our pipes, something we've over the years we've sort of come to take it for granted, and we're really realizing how an important role it plays in our lives. And now more than ever, the access to such is a serious concern. But we'll be with you until 5 o'clock. We have a few hours remaining. Let's see how many hours we have. Let's do some maths now.
Why are you counting?
Just counting.
What?
We did some English already, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Johnny will be in at 5 o'clock.
1:30. It is 1:30. So we're doing time now. So it's 1:30. Earlier, I asked you to look for a particular piece of music. Have you found it? Yes. Okay.
So we can make it if we try. It's 2.5 hours.
Yes. No. But okay. All right.
treasury broke and they say that recession jamming. So foreign countries really start migrating. They lose faith in the country, they say we gone down the drain. They say no more could we see happy times again. But the will to recover in my people like have confidence. Although many may seem to feel that I talking nonsense, but the majority of we decide we're not going to run, because now is the time to show we patriotism.
Now is the time, but we can make it if we try. But I think the rare song you wanted was Look on the Brighter Side. You gave me the wrong name. This is the one that you actually wanted. We're gonna look on the brighter side of things.
Because you were talking about that, that's
You
why
gave
I
me the
said
wrong
that.
name.
But it's Look on the Brighter Side. That's the one.
So here we go. Black Stallion. It is also a Black Stallion song. Look on the Brighter Side. From 1987. This song is actually older than myself, by the way. But let's listen.
Times may be rough, life may be tough, but we must keep going. We feeling the pain, yes we keep holding strain, but we must keep fighting. Regardless of how it come, we just can't surrender. We gotta keep working towards a better future. We may never be always down and fighting to stay off the ground. We must remember our day will come. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hurt, we must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side, because I see a silver lining behind this great cloud we're passing. Look on the bright side, look on the bright side, for the bright side is where we going. Oh. Yes, we going along the road, but we must keep going. Like if we commit a crime, and we keep serving time, but we must keep fighting. Remember they say that nothing lasts forever. One day is for the slave, one day for the master. So always keep your courage up. Don't allow confidence to drop. One day we'll be right here on top. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hurt, we must think positive. Look on the brighter side, look on the brighter side, because I see a silver lining behind this great cloud we're passing. Look on the bright side, look on the bright side, for the bright side is where we going. Falling down, but you must keep standing. It keep getting hot, like the pressure won't stop, but we must keep going. Everybody in life does have their little setbacks, but we just can't say that's that. Sit down and relax. Don't care what we go through today, surrender we must never say. Where there's a will, there is a way. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hurt, we must Just think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind this gray cloud we're passing. Look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we go.
And a whole lot of love in my country. But I pray for the police, please inspire them to keep the peace. Oh, Father, I pray for the judge and the jury, and those who begging for them mercy. Oh, Father, I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. I pray for the good and the bad man. I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. I pray for the whole of my nation. I hear my prayer, a prayer for my country. But now, pray for my country. Oh, I say a prayer. Living conditions sometimes is so unbearable. It's very hard for the youths to stay out of trouble. And they graduate with their degree, but they still cannot find nothing to do in this country. That's bad. I'm sure you know that this whole saying is true. The devil always has plenty work for those who idle. So they turn to drug, alcohol and recklessness, and creating terror for those who make progress. So before another one dies, control them. Oh, Father, I pray for the misguided youth man walking around with dangerous weapon. Oh, and a whole lot of peace in my country. Father, I pray for the woman who give herself to prostitution. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray for the lovely young lady who raising her child without daddy. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. I pray for the corner and the job man. I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. I pray for the whole of the nation. Oh, Father, I pray for my country. Make us to dwell in love and peace with each other, oh Father. Pray, pray for my country. I want to pray for the preacher man and the churches. I want to say a prayer for the doctors and the nurses. I want to beg the master to give them inspiration as they fight to prolong the lives of our loved ones. I want to say a prayer for the school teachers, but they are the ones who shape the children's future. A special prayer goes out for the musicians and me Rasta brethren song here in Babylon. I pray for the poor and needy, Father have some mercy. Hey, Father, I pray for the farmers who go into torment and horrors. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray for every fisherman who risking their life in the ocean. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray for the elders and the little babies. I pray for the prisoners and each and every one in my country. I know it's plenty to mention, but I must pray for them Calypsonian. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray for NCCDC, the GPCA and family. Oh, Father, oh, Father. I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. I pray for a change in attitude. I pray and I pray, I pray and I pray. For us to live up as we should. May the light of the good God shine upon my nation. Make those in authority be respected.
And if you're up and you're having an issue with water and you're living especially around Kingstown, the MV Logos, they have water on board. All you've got to do is to take your water containers and they will give you water. So that's if you're up and in and around Kingstown and you're desperately looking for water. I know how challenging it is. And that's a source where you can get some water. So we encourage you to do that. We're 17 minutes away from 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, we're going to take a break at 2 o'clock.
Yes. We're bringing a roundup of the news and then we have some music for you to keep you awake.
Just to keep you awake. Yeah.
But we have one lined up here now called One Caribbean Nation. This is not a new track by any stretch of the imagination.
I thought we were playing St. Vincent, I Love You.
Oh, I sort of changed the order of the tracks there. Do you want to do that one first?
Yes, I think it's...
All right, so let's switch it around.
Because after you pray for your nation, you need to know what nation you're praying for, because a drummer is Grenada, I think, right?
He's Grenadian.
So then we're specifically talking about St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And St. Vincent, regardless to what, we love you.
St. Vincent, my homeland, you gave me no mansion, no gold, no diamond, yet I love you a million for the things that you have to offer. It's more than my heart's desire. Lovely beach, tropical breeze, always there within my reach. I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent. I love you, St. Vincent, home of the blessed St. Vincent. St. Vincent, St. Vincent, I love the sunrise, can look at the sunset. Sweet Mother Nature, such beauty, such splendor. Can live my life without fear. Freedom to go anywhere. You got love and you got peace. From La Soufriere to the Grenadines, I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent. I love you, St. Vincent, home of the blessed St. Vincent. St. Vincent, St. Vincent. Christmas and Carnival. You got so much bacchanal. Wailing time is any time, and any time is wailing time. I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent. I love you, St. Vincent. St. Vincent, St. Vincent, St. Vincent, I love you. Mango guava jelly, early morning fish tea, coconut water, farina and sabuka, pilau, crayfish and kalaloo. Sauce, dumpling and maniku, roast breadfruit, blackfish ribs, and much, much more deliciousness. I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent. I love you, St. Vincent, home of the blessed St. Vincent. St. Vincent, St. Vincent, I
I thank you for all the things you have done for me. St. Vincent, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many beautiful sceneries that make us the gem of the Antilles. Baroli, I fish oil, a good medicine for every boy and girl. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Lay you, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many men with great professions that make us a leading place in this nation. La, 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 la. La, la, la. La, la, la. La, 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 la. La, la, la. La, la, la. Oh, you gave me everything that can make me jump and sing. Mesco, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Mesopotamia, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many banana trees, the green gold of the West Indies. La Soufriere, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Soufriere, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You blow up when things are going wrong and remind us of the mighty one. Grenadines, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Bekwe, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so much tranquility, quietness and serenity. Kingston, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Kingston, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You are the head of this nation to make sure nothing go wrong. Macintosh, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. Macintosh, I thank you for all the things you have done for me. You gave us so many great musicians, the best in the Caribbean.
If this is a gift, thank God it's meant for me. We'll have two lovely children on this land I'm dreaming of. I'm dreaming of a little island, just big enough for two.
It's 2 a.m. in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and across the wider Eastern Caribbean, and we're still here with you. We'll be here until 5 a.m. when Johnny Straker comes in to be your company for the morning show. Your morning cup is at 6 o'clock. The packed program awaits you. Do stay with NBC. We'll take a break at this time from speaking for a bit and have some music lined up for you. But before that, we'll bring you a roundup of the latest world news from the BBC World Service in London, so that you're at least kept informed as to what's happening around the world and you're not missing out on your BBC World News. So that's coming up in just a bit. As you stay with us, we stay with you, and we keep your company.